Welcome back to part 3 of a 1950 Buick Super motor and transmission mount replacement. In the previous videos, you've seen motor mounts and then the transmission mounts. Just kind of going over a few things here. I was getting late on the last video, so we had to wrap that one up. And we are on to a new day, a new dawn. A couple of things to go over with. As you can see, I've got the new bolts started on the crossover. I've got these 3 in here from the thrust pad. The transmission mount is up in here. That's these bolts here and here. I've got that in place. I do want to make a correction. I can't remember if in the previous video I said that they had to go in first or not. That is actually not true. In a sense, it does need to be laid into the cross member first before you put the cross member back in. So they need to be laid up inside there. But this pad, the thrust pad, does need to go in between everything unless you take off this bracket. Now this bracket is mounted to the transmission. You will leak fluid out other than what's on that torque ball if you remove this bracket. So if you decide that this bracket you don't want to have here, make sure there's a pan underneath of here because you will leak the fluid out of it. So if you're fine with that, then go ahead by all means. I chose not to do it that way just because I didn't want a mess to deal with and having to replace fluid that may or may not be necessary. So that being said, a couple tips and tricks to remember. Your angle of attack here is that you are having everything supported. Transmission and motor. Now, obviously, if your motor is disconnected from your transmission, then you only have to worry about one or the other. But when you are doing this, please remember that to get this all lined up, the top studs on your motor mounts need to be loosened. No, I mean, they don't need to be taken off, but you do need to loosen them up. As you can see, I don't have these tightened down either, just so I have some adjustments for this cross member. And I don't have the shims in place just yet because we need to still adjust everything and figure out where we're going with that. And that might be on a separate video. This is just to show you how to get these in here, and then we can always do the shims on another install video. But I just want to make sure we understand that, so you have some space, because I can almost put my fingers up inside here with this lip, so that way you can finagle some things around. You can see there's the gap there on this cross member. You can wiggle that into place. So just keep in mind, motor mounts, top studs either side, keep those loose, keep everything loose, don't button anything down, and you may or may not have to adjust the height of your motor and transmission. That's why the blocks are still under everything. You're still going to need to adjust the height of everything once you zero everything out, and we'll go from there. But I'll get these buttoned up into place. Get these studs here, get those 4 studs over there. Then once this cross member is in place, then we can kind of adjust some things with the transmission. There's another bracket that goes up inside here, and that acts as washers, and we'll show you all that, and then we'll finish up with everything. Welcome back for a few minutes. About that. All right, so I'm going to impart a little bit of wisdom on everybody. You can see these bolts are in here. That's the cross member. Go ahead and turn my torch on. Sorry. All right, so the cross member's in. Cross member's all the way across. And let's go ahead and impart a little bit of wisdom on everybody here. The graybeards, this should not apply to you, but anybody who's new at doing something like this, I actually had to have my wife help me out with adjusting the angle that everything is, so that I just can't get underneath of here with a crowbar. There's not enough space. Otherwise, I would have done that. But lifting and slowly lowering the whole assembly so that this crossbar would seat in with the holes here. Now, and get one in, and then we just adjust everything, get that in. The thing about it is, I almost got one of these in, and the instinct is to push or tap it in. You get it there. Oh, I'll just push or tap it in. Do not not like smack it in with a hammer or so, because what it's doing is it's got two pieces of metal. It's sandwiching, and it's resting on the threads. If you do that, you run a serious risk of stripping out your bolt. So in that event where it's resting and it's sandwiched and can't get itself in there, turn it in place. Take your ratchet, take whatever you have, and literally screw it through the hole, because you run less of a risk of screwing up your threads than if you just tap it in with a hammer. You literally flatten out a whole area, and then now you're going to need a whole new bolt or whatever. It's obviously not a big deal, but it'll save you a trip to the hardware store. So, like I said, I went with all new hardware here just because all this was really rusty and I just didn't trust it. Grade 8 bolts with lock washers. Very important, is frames flex and whatnot. So let's get the rest of this in, and we'll button this up and come back to it for probably another video of checking the geometry and everything. If you're wondering why I'm doing this, other than the fact that everything was shot, obviously from the other two videos, the linkage for the transmission was not allowing the car to go into, was it low? It was like low and reverse, because they're a different band in the gearbox, and if your geometry is off on your linkage, you won't be able to shift. I was basically, by the time I got to reverse, probably a quarter way out on everything, which doesn't sound, and I'm talking about for column, when I was up on the column, which doesn't sound like a lot, but if you won't do it, it's not going to work, and then you're just going to end up breaking stuff. So we'll be right back. All right, we're back. I just want you guys to understand something while I'm doing this videos. When I say I'm back, I've paused the video, and it could be anywhere from 10 to 30 minutes in between, because there's no real reason for me to sit here and have you watch me struggle on this. I'd rather just be in something that you can see and whatnot. But I do want you to understand. I'm gonna turn this torch on. There we go. I do want you to understand. You can see how off that hole is. Everything else lines up. Got the bolts in. Obviously, these bolts are not tightened down because we've got to figure some stuff out. I don't even have the shims in yet. But I'm trying to get the transmission straightened out and whatnot on here. Like I said, I want you to understand that this is not. Hopefully, you're watching this before you tear into this, and not during, because this is not a quick process. This is not even close to a quick process. I'd estimate that unless you have a shop and you can get this car up on a lift, well, I mean, you can't even really do that. That you have a way to have more than just a garage and a jack and everything is not a quick process. So just understand that when you go into it, that your car may be down for at least a weekend while you replace this. And that's really depending on how easy the process goes, how rotted out things are. I mean, you can see from the underside of my car that things are, yes, rotted. I mean, this whole pan's going to get cut out, and we're going to put new metal in here, and we're going to really go I mean, you can see how shot my body mounts are. I mean, I don't even think there is a body mount left on. I'm not even sure I can get those bolts off of there, to be perfectly honest. They're pretty freaking rusty. So we'll see what happens. But that being said, I'm trying to get this into place. Who knows? Maybe this will be a four-part series on replacing all this. But I'm hoping everyone can learn from what I'm doing, so that they can either be faster in the future, or when they go to tackle this, you understand that this is not easy. Parts are cheap, labor's not.